Cody Bellinger, Justin Turner, Yimi Garcia. These are all names we know. Could they be Dodgers soon? Let's talk about it. Let's get locked on Dodgers.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, Dodger fans. Welcome to Locked On Dodgers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one local sports daily podcast network. Locked On, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, the sports stop sporting like we want them to, but this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. This is the daily podcast covering the Los Angeles Dodgers, bringing you the smart fans' perspective on our boys in blue. You can find us wherever you find podcasts and on YouTube. All you got to do is search for Locked On Dodgers. You can become an everyday or by listening or watching every day, which can be made easier by subscribing and get notified when our episodes are ready for you or when we're going live on YouTube, like we are right now if you're watching live on YouTube. And Jeff and I are, or if this is your first time watching, my name is Vince, and we don't always stumble over the intro like this. That's my co-host, Jeff Snyder. Jeff and I are both lifelong Dodger fans that have covered the team for about a decade in various capacities, writing, talking, all that good stuff. And we're here to talk about the Dodgers once again here today because we've been doing that for the last 5+ years on the Locked On Podcast Network, and we're here to do it once again. No game on Monday, so nothing to get into in that realm, but there is some stuff to talk about, and we're going to hop right into it because there are some names, Jeff, that are starting to emerge from teams that are starting to fall out of contention. I talked a little bit about the Blue Jays yesterday in the sense that it looks like they might keep Bichette, potentially, Bo Bichette, and Vlad Guerrero Jr., but there was some other names that were mentioned that they could be looking to trade. And then the Cubs are currently in last place in the NL Central, and they have some intriguing names on their roster as well that the Dodgers could go after. There's some familiar names here, and just because we're going to talk about them doesn't mean we believe that the Dodgers should get them, but we're definitely going to discuss them. But first, we'll start off with the one that hasn't been a Dodger, but we have talked about him in years past, Ian Happ, someone that can play up the middle, someone that can hopefully hit a lot better than some of the guys that we currently have on the roster. Is this someone the Dodgers should be targeting?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Ian Happ is just kind of under the radar, but he's been basically a solid hitter his whole career. He had 1 year that his OPS plus was only 103, one at only 102, but usually it's right in the one teens. His career OPS plus is 113. And so he is a solid hitter. Nothing to write home about, but solid hitter, switch hitter, I think. Yeah, switch hitter, plays adequate defense in the outfield. You could definitely do worse than Ian Happ. It's one of those things where, I don't know, for some reason, Ian Happ doesn't excite me, even though he's a good, solid player. And when you think about the kind of guys who, the Marco Scutero, Eddie Rosario, guys who are low impact acquisitions at a trade deadline who then end up having a big impact in the postseason. Ian Happ seems like he could be that kind of guy, but that doesn't mean he would be,
I think at this point, you need upgrades, and whether it's at second base specifically over Gavin Lux, he's an upgrade. At this point, Gavin Lux, they can give him as much time as they want and hope that it keeps turning around. But, realistically, at some point, it might not turn around this year. Not that they need to give up on him completely. But, if they can find someone that wants to trade for him and they can find an upgrade, Ian Happ would be an upgrade at second base. In the outfield, he would be an upgrade in some cases. Obviously, Jason Hayward's had a little bit of an up and down year. Andy Pages has been a little bit hot and cold here and there. But there's at the end of the day, he improves your team. And obviously, it always comes down to what it would cost to get him. And that's really what it comes down to. The Dodgers already made a trade with the Cubs in the offseason. So you'd imagine that there's some knowledge of both sides in terms of any prospects or anyone the Cubs might be interested in. So every time we talk about someone that's a potential trade target, it's obviously always going to come down to what does it cost, unless it's someone very rarely is there someone that's like, oh yeah, get him at almost all costs. But with the way the Dodgers farm system is currently constructed, it is a time where I don't know if anyone's necessarily married to a lot of the prospects like we have been in the past, and it might be a time to trade a few of them and get some guys back and improve the team, even if it's not blockbuster trades.
Yeah, I was texting on our insider group the other day I think it was with our buddy Pat Dwyer, about guys like Andre Lipsius who can't crack the 40-man roster. And part of that is because they don't really have open spots on the 40-man roster. And part of that is because what we talked about in the offseason, they have 4 catchers on the 40-man roster. And that leads me to believe that I think there's a decent chance that Diego Cartaya gets moved at this trade deadline, partly because he is back to being a solid prospect, and partly because the Dodgers really can't afford to keep carrying 4 catchers on the 40-man roster, because it means they can't call up a guy like Andre Lipsius without, doing something bigger. Obviously they could. Kevin Biggio could go away and nobody would be sad, especially nobody in our current live chat. But in general, having 4 catchers on your 40-man roster removes a lot of that flexibility. And so I think Diego Cartaya is likely to go. I think Miguel Vargas is likely to be traded. I've seen a bunch of stuff on social media. Well, if they're not going to start Vargas, why is he even on the roster? I think it's to be able to tell their teams, look, he's a big leaguer. He's hitting really well in the big leagues. So give us good players for him,
Yeah. And that's, what it comes down. We talked about Vargas in depth a couple weeks ago. And that point was, the main point is, could he play more? Yes. But could they keep him in situations where he's more likely to succeed and keep the value up? That's maybe what they're doing right now. So we'll see what happens in that regard. But another player on the Cubs is a player that we're familiar with as well, and it's Cody Bellinger. Now, there's been no rumors of Cody Bellinger to the Dodgers, but there has been rumors that if the Cubs continue to lose, that Cody Bellinger might be a player someone is interested in. The Dodgers do need a center fielder. It doesn't appear that James Outman is on his way back anytime soon, or maybe they're going to hold off until after the deadline. If they don't get a center fielder, maybe that's when Outman makes his way back up if they want to try that out. But yeah, Cody Bellinger, had a weird offseason, signed that deal where he can opt out after every year, 3 years, $80 million, I believe. But yeah, Jeff, would you be interested in seeing Cody Bellinger back?
Everything I said about Ian Happ about how he's been under the radar and consistently good. Basically, Cody Bellinger is the opposite, not consistent and not under the radar. He's been okay this year. He's got a 109 OPS plus, quite a bit worse than last year. And his defense isn't great anymore. He's been playing a lot of first base, still playing mostly center field, but also some right field, even a little bit of left field, which he hadn't played since his second year with the Dodgers. But yeah, he is, Bellinger was looking for that big bounce back contract, and it hasn't happened. He's not a superstar again yet. And at this point, Cody Bellinger's not young anymore. The way I can remember that is because he was born right after I graduated high school. And that was a long, 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 long time ago. He's almost 29. He's going to be 29 next week. And so, that's not old by baseball standards, but it is kind of at the point where it's like, okay, is he ever going to regain that form that he had? He was, when he won the MVP, he was 23 years old, and he's had a lot of wear and tear in the body, doesn't move like he used to. He would be an upgrade over some guys the Dodgers have, but when you look at their outfield, I don't know that he's really an upgrade there. And since his only positional flexibility is to also play first base, that's a position the Dodgers don't currently need. And if they did, they'd have Miguel Vargas for that instead of Cody Bellinger. Yeah, I know a lot of people would love to have Bellinger back. I saw somebody on social media saying it would just be sweet irony if the Dodgers traded James Outman for Cody Bellinger. But while I wouldn't be surprised to see Outman included in a trade this month, we're only 29 days away from the trade deadline now. Bellinger, as much as I love Bellinger, I don't really see him as a fit on this Dodgers team.
Yeah, I felt the same way when we talked about it a little bit last deadline about Bellinger, and I feel the same way. Like, it's one of those where, when you bring back a guy like Kike last year, and realistically it didn't cost the Dodgers much, and they were looking for help in more of a backup platoon type role. So I don't have a big issue with it. Maybe this year there's a little bit more of an issue because he's just not hitting as well as he did a little bit toward the end of last year. But Bellinger, like, you're legitimately going to be a guy that should be playing every day. It could be, I guess, the left-handed hitter of a platoon, and yeah, it doesn't move the needle for me. The fact that he could still cost you money if he doesn't opt out is, not ideal situation, just because, like, he's not that great anymore, and he's not going to give you, an all-star. He might not be an all-star ever again. And, if you're going to trade for someone and have to pay them 20 plus mil a year, you'd hope that they would at least be good enough to be an all-star.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, there are more names to come, especially some guys that also were former Dodgers. So make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Sports are great. We love sports, or maybe you just love baseball. But either way, we get fewer games, fewer sports during the summer. Baseball takes the precedence, and FanDuel is here to let you keep the sports going whenever you want, because all you have to do is open the app and dream up bets anytime you're in the mood. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a booster bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. You can take a look at tomorrow's game for the Dodgers. They're currently minus 200 on the money line to win the game, which means you're not going to get too much return if the Dodgers do win. However, they're plus 108 if you think they're going to win by 2 runs or more. So you could take that odds. If you think Ohtani's going to keep this hot streak up and hit a home run, he's at plus 200. So there's some good odds there for the Dodgers for tomorrow's game. And remember, all summer long, there's going to be different boosts and bonuses daily on FanDuel. So head over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and start making the most out of your summer. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. Make sure to check us out wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And if you're on YouTube, you can check out Locked On Sports Today or Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 2 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network, bringing you the biggest news and stories from the sports world and the LA sports world. Locked On Dodgers Postcast with host Pete Fox is also available on the Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel after most Dodger games and on our audio feed. And you can always go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Text directly with us and get any news or updates or rumors as they start trickling in. Kind of similar to the Cubs in the first segment is there's names that have been put out there by the Blue Jays or that are reportedly out there that the Blue Jays would be willing to trade for. None have been linked to the Dodgers specifically, but there could be some guys that the Dodgers could maybe use. One of those names that's been getting some traction on social media, and I don't personally see it, but I can understand people and their nostalgia, is Justin Turner. Jeff, is there any way Justin Turner makes sense for the Dodgers?
Well, I mean, he has bounced back a little bit offensively lately, and so I guess if the Dodgers thought that Justin Turner could still play third base, and if they thought that Max Muncy was still a ways away from coming back, and if they thought they could get Justin Turner for very cheap, then I think that would be a possibility. I would guess that only one of those 3 things at most is actually true. I don't think the Dodgers think Justin Turner can still play third base. And that right there is disqualifying because the Dodgers have pretty darn good first baseman and DH. So, Turner used to be a second baseman. I don't really think that's a possibility. He did play a little second base last year with the Red Sox, but Justin Turner's a DH and a first baseman now, and the Dodgers don't need that. And so unless there was some inside information that he really, is having a resurgence physically and defensively, that he could play a solid third base, I just don't see any chance of that happening.
Yeah. If he was hitting like really well, maybe you could stick him at third base until Muncy gets back. And then after that, he could be a bench piece, but he's not hitting well. And, you don't know Father Time may have passed him up a couple years ago when the Dodgers let him walk, and it might still be going. He had a good season in Boston. He had a good start to the season this year in Toronto, and the fact is there that he can still catch fire, I would imagine, every so often. But the issue with him was fastballs and elevated fastballs and fastballs over 95 miles an hour, which is what you're going to face when it comes down to it in October. And realistically, that I would prefer not to see Justin Turner swinging through those pitches anymore. And it's one of those things where his legacy with the Dodgers is already great. There's no reason to kind of bring him back, and even I don't want to see that go down anymore. So.
Yeah, I do think the Blue Jays have a decent chance of trading him because he does have an 826 OPS in his last 32 games, but that is a very on-base percentage heavy 830 or 826. His on-base percentage is 434. So his walk rate is crazy in that time, which is awesome, but he's got 1 home run and 7 doubles in that time. The slugging percentage is 392. So for whatever position he's playing, whether it's third base, first base, or DH, you expect more power from that spot. And he's not a power hitter by any means anymore.
Yeah, definitely. There was another name on that list, and that name was Yimi Garcia. He's done well over there since leaving the Dodgers. He's someone, the Dodgers could be looking for a relief pitcher. He's not one of the top tier names. He's not he's closed games, but he's not necessarily a lockdown closer. But yeah, is this somebody that the Dodgers could think about?
I don't know. I guess we'd have to figure out how to say his name if he did. He was always Yimi Garcia when he was on the Dodgers. Blue Jays broadcasters call him Jimmy Garcia. Baseball Reference says it's Jimmy. Jeeme is how it's pronounced. Jimmy, which I guess is, just Yimi with a J sound, which, makes sense. But, if for no other reason, then I don't want to have to figure out how to say his name. I don't know, but there's some Yimi Garcia nightmares that we have from his time with the Dodgers. He gave up a lot of home runs with the Dodgers. 2019, 15 home runs in 62 innings. That's too many. 2.2 home runs per 9 innings. He's down to 1.0 home runs per 9 this year. He's pitched really well, but a 287 FIP for a reliever really isn't that spectacular. It's not that great. And so I don't know that it's enough if the Blue Jays are looking to get a lot for him, and given the market for pitching, they probably are. I would guess I don't think he makes the Dodgers bullpen enough better to justify giving up a lot for him.
Yeah, if it's anything above like a top 25 prospect in the Dodger system, I just don't think it makes sense. Relievers are already tough to trade for anyways, but a reliever that has struggles in the past, and I'm always going to have he could have a 0 ERA the last 2 seasons, and when the Dodgers trade for him, you think like, oh, he's going to give up a home run the first time. Like, that's just what we've seen and what we know, and that's also a little bit of my thinking in general when it comes to games that matter for the Dodgers. But that's just the way it is. I don't think like I said, if you get him for some 16th round pick from 5 years ago before they went to the less rounds, sure, why not? But
yeah.
One more name from the Blue Jays is another outfielder, Kevin Kiermaier. Kiermaier was linked to the Dodgers in the offseason, but he ended up, not signing with LA. If the Dodgers are looking for specifically, I guess, a defensive upgrade, with Page's numbers not being that great, even though he does look comfortable at times, but he also doesn't look so great at times. There's a possibility the Dodgers could be interested in him again.
I've been off the Kevin Kiermaier train forever. I didn't like the idea last offseason, and I like it even less now that he has a 49 OPS plus this year, which is bad even by his standards. He's never been a good hitter. He's been an average hitter at times in his career, but not anytime recently. So yeah, he is, and he's not as good defensively as he used to be. He's still, he's better defensively than Andy Paz in center field, but not nearly enough better to justify the much, much worse offense. Basically, Kiermaier for me would be if there was instead of 13 position players on the roster, if there was room for 16 guys, So you could take one guy just to pinch run and one guy just for outfield defense. Sure, give Kevin Kiermaier a flyer. Maybe he could be that both of those guys. He's fast, but no, in the way rosters are currently constructed, I don't see any room for Kevin Kiermaier on a team that hopes to win the World Series.
Yeah, as it presently stands, the Dodgers don't have the luxury of one roster spot being a dead bat. They already have that with Austin Barnes. You don't want to have two dead bats on your bench, especially when it comes to an October. Like we've seen that we've seen it play out before. We've seen Austin Barnes take a big at bat, last year in the postseason and in years past. And then we all remember Steven Souza and whoever the other Billy McKinney and different guys take big at bats in different capacities in the past few off seasons. So let's hope we don't have to see that again this year. And Kevin Kiermaier would be that guy. There's no reason to keep a glove only guy on the roster at the moment. So
yeah, my hope is that by the time October rolls around, the Dodgers have 13 guys who can hit on their roster.
Yeah, ideal world. So there is a couple more names maybe to talk about, and one move that the Dodgers did make on the minor league side. And if you are here in the chat and you want us to talk about anything else, go ahead and drop any suggestions or questions. Until then, make sure to keep it locked on Dodgers. Today's episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. PrizePicks is America's #1 daily fantasy sports app with over 5 million active members. Get in on the daily action with your friends and become a part of PrizePicks community today. PrizePicks is available in more than 30 states across the country, including California, Texas, and Georgia. And PrizePicks has some intriguing little specials going on right now that can help you out. PrizePicks, all you got to do is pick more or less on stat projections for 2 to 6 players. And right now they're basically giving you a free square in two different ways. There's one for the hot dog eating contest. Some guy just has to eat one hot dog, and I think he's one of the projected guys to maybe win it. So you can pick that and pick one other thing to happen. Maybe Shohei Ohtani more than 1.5 hits, runs, RBIs, and boom, if Ohtani hits 4th of July, you'll hit with the hot dog, and boom, you get some money in your PrizePicks account. They also have one for Patrick Mahomes. He just has to throw 1 yard in the NFL regular season, and as long as he doesn't go down like Aaron Rodgers did last year, you'll definitely win that. You just have to wait till September to collect on that. So PrizePicks is always running little deals like that. So make sure to go check out the PrizePicks app right now. Pick more or less on 2 to 6 guys. Put down what you want to wager, and boom, that's all you got to do and get. You could turn $10,000 or $10 into $1,000, even more. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. That's code LOCKEDONMLB on PrizePicks for a first deposit match up to $100. PrizePicks, pick more, pick less. It's that easy. Today's episode is also brought to you by Tax Network USA. Here on Locked On Dodgers, we pride ourselves on getting you the latest news, latest rumors, and everything else that goes on, whether it's spring training, the regular season, or the postseason. It's year round. You know what else is year round? Collection season. And just because tax season is over doesn't mean the IRS will stop coming after you for unfiled taxes. April 15th is just a date. It's not a date when the world ends in terms of the IRS side. The IRS can garnish your wages, levy your bank accounts, and even seize your property. So don't let the IRS target you. Let the licensed professionals and tax experts at Tax Network USA go to bat for you. There's countless stories of people that have, lost property or didn't pay the taxes or, didn't file taxes and, different ways to get in trouble with the IRS. Why risk that? With over 14 years of experience and an A+ rating by the Better Business Bureau, Tax Network USA has saved their clients over $1 billion in tax debt. And whether you owe taxes, have complicated matters that require tax planning, or you finally hit that big parlay this season and need help correctly filing, call 1-800-549-1000 or visit tnusa.com/lockedon and make sure to mention Locked On Dodgers at checkout and you'll receive a $250 discount off their services. Want to thank you for being an everydayer. If you are one, if you're not one, all you have to do is listen or watch every day. We're here for you every Monday through Friday for about 30 minutes. If you are not subscribed, but you are someone that's an everydayer, make sure to help us out and subscribe as well. You can subscribe wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. And remember, you can go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Text directly with us, get news, updates, rumors, thoughts when things happen in the Dodger world. And you can always ask us questions or send any suggestions for the show. As we head into this final segment, there was a little bit of Dodger news. There was a report that the Dodgers picked up Alan Trejo, who was most recently on the Rockies. They designated for him assignment. I think it said that they tried to send him to the minors. He refused, became a free agent. The Dodgers picked him up. He'll be with the OKC Dodgers. Again, we saw some earlier in the chat about dumpster diving. Right now, there's not a lot to go if you're trying to upgrade the roster. And realistically, Trejo will only be seen if someone gets hurt on the current roster before Max Muncy comes back. So I don't, it's always good to have positional value or positional depth in the upper minor leagues.
Yeah. I think I'd be surprised if we say Alan Trejo's name again on this podcast this year.
Yeah, and something went wrong if we did. So
yeah.
All right. The one name that I did see earlier and that we haven't talked about recently, we've talked about him in the past, is Kenley Jansen. He's the one former Dodger that has been linked to the Dodgers a little bit. He's also got linked to the Padres, I believe, the other day from John Heyman. We weren't really on board before. I would imagine maybe we're still not on board now. But Jeff, with Jansen, it being, I guess, last year of his deal, does it make sense if the Dodgers do go after him?
I still don't see it. I wonder, like I said last week, I feel like whoever's reporting that isn't in touch with the Dodgers. And then I keep seeing it. So then I'm like worrying, am I the one who's not in touch? But yeah, I just don't see Jansen. Like I said, Yimi Garcia isn't enough of an improvement for the bullpen to be worth giving up prospects for. I don't know if Jansen's an improvement to the bullpen at all. Like even with how he's pitching this year, I mean, especially with the guys who might be coming back from injury, Jansen would have a hard time cracking the current Dodgers bullpen, let alone when you throw back in Ryan Brazier and Joe Kelly and maybe Bruce Gratterall and those guys. Kenley just doesn't make sense to me at all.
Yeah, especially because there's no real, at least not in recent time. Like there's no thing to show to prove if there's a big difference between the 9th inning and the 7th inning, 8th inning, 6th inning, whatever it is. We don't have proof of Kenley Jansen being able to handle, 6, 7, 8 innings. Really, he's been mostly a closer for the most part. And maybe if there is a different mentality for the 9th inning, maybe that's where Jansen picks up even a little velocity bump or whatever the case is. Because he has been good this year. I mean, his FIP is lower than his ERA currently. He has more strikeouts and innings pitched. So like there's little things here and there that shown that he's been a good pitcher. But if you move him to realistically, he's not better than Evan Phillips. He's not better than Blake Treinen. He's not, maybe on par with Daniel Hudson, maybe. But, if you put Kenley Jansen in the 6th inning of a game or the 7th inning of a game, like, is he going to, one, is he going to accept that? Two, is he going to be effective?
Yeah, and really the main difference between Jansen this year and Jansen the last few years is that hasn't allowed a single home run. Everything else, like if you look at like 2020, when Jansen lost his closer role. He didn't close out the World Series for the Dodgers. He blew a save in the postseason in the World Series. That version of Kenley Jansen had a higher strikeout rate and a lower walk rate than this year's Kenley Jansen. The only difference is home run rate. And so if there was some reason to believe Kenley Jansen has figured out how to be the only pitcher in baseball who never allows a home run, then I'd be interested, but I don't believe in that change. And so I don't believe that this version of Kenley Jansen is actually good enough to go after.
Yeah. So, all in all, it looks like we're not ready to bring back any of these former Dodgers. There are some other names here that we've talked about. Randy Rosarena right here on the screen right now. We've seen Jack Flaherty be mentioned. We've now Randy. I guess, when it comes to Randy, realistically, what would you be willing to give up for him? I guess is a better question. We've talked about, do we want him? But if it costs the Dodgers, we can find some names and kind of throw them out there. Like, would it matter to you, I guess?
Yeah. That's always the hard part because there's a reason that you and I do a podcast and don't work in a front office. And I also think maybe one of our weaknesses as podcasters is that we are sometimes unwilling to go out of our lane and talk about things. Like I'm like, that's above my pay grade. So who would you trade for him? Because basically I believe that the Dodgers have smart people running the team. And I do think that the Dodgers have a very deep farm system and an upcoming, and again, another 40-man roster crunch. And so the Dodgers need to make some trades. And we said the same thing last year at the trade deadline. And then in the offseason, the Dodgers need to make some trades because there are guys they're going to have to add to the 40-man roster. They've got 8,000 guys on the 60-day injured list right now who are going to be coming off. Like, there's roster crunches, not just after the season, but even during the season. And so, whether it's trading guys who are currently on the 40-man roster, guys like Miguel Vargas and James Outman and Diego Cartaya, or guys who are going to need to be added to the 40-man roster this coming off season, there are a lot of moves to be made. And so, I don't think you just say, okay, whatever you want for Randy Arozarena, we'll give it to you. But I absolutely think that the Dodgers have the prospects that it takes. And there's not many guys who I would consider untouchable. Because even, River Ryan, who I'm super high on as a pitching prospect, he's also, the Dodgers have a lot of pitching and might send Roki Sasaki in the offseason, and obviously, as we've seen, you never have too much pitching because sometimes you still have the corpse of James Paxton in your rotation. But, there's not many guys who on their own, I would say, no, don't include him for Arozarena.
Yeah, and when it comes, this is the difference between different trading partners. Like Arozarena, obviously to the Rays realistically aren't looking to rebuild. They're just looking to retool, and they'll be looking for guys that are close to the majors. Like, similar to the trade they made in offseason when they got Ryan Pepio and what's the dude with the mustache?
Johnny DeLuca.
Yeah, Johnny DeLuca. So, there's guys that the Dodgers have, like River Ryan's one of those guys who's close to the majors. Nick Frosso's coming off shoulder surgery, so maybe not him, but he would have been a guy that maybe intrigued him. Kyle Hurt could be a name that intrigues, the Rays and different guys like that. And then when you go, one of Rushing or Fiducia, maybe potentially, the Dodgers don't have too many position players that high up ready to go, but, pitching wise, it may be what it comes down to. And when you talk about, a team like the Tigers with Flaherty or the White Sox with Crochet, like, the White Sox said they're looking for young, kind of like lotto ticket type guys, I would imagine. Maybe one top prospect and maybe some more lotto ticket. The Dodgers picked up a couple of those, Zaire Hope in the offseason and a couple other guys. If they continue to develop, those could be guys that end up being traded for, maybe a Garrett Crochet or, Luis Robert or whatever. So it just depends on the team when you're kind of trying to build out some of these trades. And like I said, we know the names, we can look at the stats, but we're not really scouts or anything like that, and know what we don't know what the Dodgers are planning or have up their sleeve or what their process is. But yeah, I do think this is one year where, assuming you're not giving up like your top 3 prospects for a rental, like the Dodgers could make some moves, and I probably wouldn't be too upset about it.
Yeah, and we also know even less about what the Rays might be looking for. We're definitely not Rays experts on any level of their system. So, who knows what they're looking for. But yeah, Arozarena, as I said last week, my perfect trade deadline would be Garrett Crochet, Randy Arozarena, and Bo Bichette. And I could be, I've actually softened. I was anti-Jack Flaherty last week. I've done a little more reading on him. Specifically, I wanted to see, is there a reason that he's better this year? And there are things that he's doing differently, things that he's doing better. And so I am more inclined to believe that it might be for real. So I don't hate the Jack Flaherty idea anymore.
All right, there you go. So again, July is here. The rumors will start coming. We'll hear I remember with rumors, you'll hear a lot of names. You'll see a lot of names. You'll see the Dodgers linked to a lot of guys. You'll see potential trade packages. For the most part, the trade packages that always get floated at the beginning of July are nowhere near what the actual trade packages end up being. So,
yep.
All right, that's going to do it for today's episode. Thank you all for listening. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day. Make sure to find us wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe. Tell your friends, family, any Dodger fans in your life that, there's podcasts here for them every Monday through Friday for about 30 minutes. That hopefully makes everyone better Dodger fans in the process. You can check out Locked On Sports Today or Locked On Sports Los Angeles, 24/7 streaming channels from the Locked On Podcast Network. The Locked On Dodgers postcast is available on the Locked On Locked On Sports Los Angeles YouTube channel after most games and on our audio feed. You can go beyond the podcast, become a Locked On Dodgers insider at joinsubtext.com/LockedOnDodgers. Get messages directly from us when things happen in the Dodgers world, or just ask us questions or give us your thoughts if you want to just have a Dodger chat. You can also find us on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Locked On Dodgers. Jeff's on Twitter at Snydog. I'm at Vincent's91. You can DM us if you have any questions or comments. You can also send those via email, lockedondodgers@gmail.com, or via voicemail text at 323-863-5625. We're here every weekday morning, and we hope you'll be here with us when you get in your car, or if you're at home. Search my device, play podcast, Locked On Dodgers. And remember, you don't have to agree. You just have to listen. Have a good one.
We'll talk to you tomorrow.